me. See if I can find it.
All right. Let's start. Should have printed. All right, whatever. Here we go. Okay, Sichos Haran. This is Rabbi Nachman. It says, "V'alimad poskim to learn poskim, to learn halacha. His here ma'od biyoser mikol limud." Rabbi Nachman warned his talmidim that the most important thing that you can learn is halacha from the poskim. V'roi lilmod kol ha'arba shulchan aruch kulam meirosham at sofim kesed. And it is proper for a person to learn all the arba chelkei shulchan aruch, 4 parts of shulchan aruch, as you see the nice big black volumes over here. Okay, it's a little bit fancy, a little bit large. You could condense it a little bit without all the perushim. It says Rabbi Nachman, you should learn the entire thing from beginning to end, keseder, Chaim, Ibn Ezer, Youre, Choshen Mishpat, halacha by halacha, siman by siman, siv by siv. From beginning to end, you should be learning the whole thing. Keseder. Im yochalu makar b'shulchan aruch kol perushim hagedol matov. If you could learn the 4 chelkei shulchan aruch with the big perushim, the Magen Avram and the Taz, the Shach and the Sma and all the other big perushim, how amazing that would be. Vim lav. And if you're not able to learn with all the perushim, well, actually here is actually, I'm not exactly sure how to learn this line. We'll speak about it in a minute. Vim lav, and if not, al koponim, at least yilma kol arba shulchan aruch hakatan. Learn the arba shulchan aruch hakatan, the small ones. Huh? So I'm not sure exactly what he means over here. If you're not able to what? If you're not able to learn all the perushim, learn the small perushim. That's probably what he means, because it's before he said perushim hagedolim, now perushim hakatanim. The perushim hakatan he probably means is the ber hetiv. The ber hetiv in the Shulchan Aruch, he'll make a summary. Let's say in Orach Chaim, when you have the Magen Avram and the Taz, long pieces to explain. Have you guys looked inside a Shulchan Aruch in a long time? Let's do a little show and tell. Let's just say at least for the Orach Chaim here. Here, so in a Shulchan Aruch here, this is a very fancy edition because there's a lot of perushim. The Shulchan Aruch is just this box. This is the Shulchan Aruch itself. There's a lot of most of this sefer is not the Shulchan Aruch. On this side, let's say this is Orach Chaim. These are the halachas, brachas, tefillah, shema, daily living. On one side you have the Magen Avram, and the other side you have the Taz. Right, this page doesn't actually have it. This actual page doesn't have Magen Taz either. Here you go. Here's the Magen Avram on this side, and here's the Taz on this side. These are the 2 major perushim. Then you have a lot of other. Then you have the Pri Megadim, who's very large. The Gra, you've heard of. And then this one called the Ber Hetiv. See this Ber Hetiv? See this little line over here? This line over here summarizes the main points of all of this. So this is probably what he means by the Arba Shulchan Aruch. You have to learn all of the Shulchan Aruch, but with the Perush HaKetana, meaning the Ber Hetiv. That's probably what he means. I did see someone else try to say that he meant smaller halacha svar. Now, the sefer that we generally use today, if you're not learning the Shulchan Aruch, is the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. But I don't think that was around when he was. Nachman, I think it was predated Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, so I don't know what they had. But whatever it is, a person should go through Shulchan Aruch if he can. 1 halacha a day, 2 halachas a day, just keep going through it. Rabbi Nachman says in Sicha Kuf Pei Hey, it says there that Rabbi Nachman used to give out eitzes, advice. He would give spiritual, what's the word? When you give a person a regimen, working out, different things. So he gave spiritual, what's a good word? I'm thinking of a good word.
Regimen.
Yeah.
I like that.
Is that plural? He gave out a spiritual regimen. Regimen? I can't even say it.
Regimen.
To some people, he would tell people that to fast during the week. To most people who tell them to go to the mikveh Monday and Thursday. To some people who tell them to learn 18 prakim of missionaries a day. And other types of limudim. He knew what a person needed. He knew the essence of everybody's soul. And he knew the tikkun that a person needed and what would fill that. And then it says, V'zos haisan haga haklolis. But this was a general hanhaga, this is a general way that Rabbi Nachman taught most people. Shetziva v'hizir, he commanded and he warned them, saying, Tahainu lilmod posek b'chol yom. You have to learn halacha every day. We think it's a silly thing, learn halacha every day. Like, what kind of tikkun can that make? Rabbi Nachman says this is a hanhaga klolis that everybody has to do. Afilu biyom she'ein lo panai. Even if you don't have time, even learn one sif in Shulchan Aruch is good enough. V'amar shu chiyuv gadol al kol echad Yisrael is a chiyuv gadol. It's a big obligation for a person to learn at least one sif a day, to learn halach every day. And just to go a little bit weiter, if I would have to ask you, what would you think is Rabbi Nachman most known for? What is the practice that he taught most people, that he said maybe is the most important? What do you think? Tefillah, but specifically his bodedus, right? This is the major hanhaga that Rabbi Nachman taught people to do. You have to do his bodedus, yeah? So right after Rabbi Nachman talks about Shulchan Aruch, the next words are Gam zos haisa hanhaga klalis. This is also a major hanhaga that he taught people, was to do his bodedus. So you see that Rabbi Nachman is connecting his bodedus, which we know as being the most important hanhaga in Rabbi Nachman's life, to learning Shulchan Aruch every single day. Meaning it's at the high point of the food chain of Rabbi Nachman, the spiritual food chain. Now, it's pretty simple. Why should a person learn halach every single day? Why is Rabbi Nachman telling people to learn halach every single day?
Keep you on the rails.
Because to be a frum Jew, you have to. What does it mean to be a frum Jew? It means to follow halacha, to be shomer Torah mitzvahs. You have to know the halacha to keep you in line, keep you on the rails, right? Simple. The most basic understanding is just to keep daily halacha. Halacha is also a lashon of halicha. Halicha means to walk, to go. The way that a Jew goes, how do you know how a Jew goes? Based on halacha, right? From Torah Shabbat Peh to the Shulchan Aruch, this is the way that a Jew acts. Orach Chaim, the sefer this Shulchan Aruch, which is a few volumes, even though it's not so much, you could condense it. These are the halachas from the time you wake up, Modani, all the way till you go to sleep at night, Kriya Shema Mita, with Shabbos and Yom Tov and everything in between. This is the way a Jew lives. The Baal Shem Tov in Keser Shem Tov, that's the Baal Shem Tov's famous sefer. He didn't write it, but it's his Talmidim, some people like to learn the sefer. He says there in Tuf Chaf Gimel, he says that everyone should learn all four parts of Shulchan Aruch without any perusha. Just learn the words of the Shulchan Aruch itself, and to learn it with children and all the more so with adults. Why? He says, the Baal Shem Tov says, because without this limud, Torah would be forgotten for the Jewish people. Torah would be forgotten. If not for a person learning halacha, Torah would be forgotten. He says, however, if you want to paskin, then you need to learn the mafarshim. You have to learn it properly. But there's an Indian, says the Baal Shem, we're going to call this level 1, learning halacha. It's just to be, day by day, learning the words of the Shulchan Aruch. Whether you understand the depth of it or not, whether you fully understand it or not, just learn every single day. That itself is a big evolve. That itself keeps you on the rails. Even without you understanding the halacha necessarily, the very fact that you're learning halacha every day means you're, in a certain way, a halachic Jew. Right? Lo alecha hamlacha legmor. Says American Mission Pergavos. It's not upon you to finish everything. V'lo ben chorin libatel mimena. But you're not a ben chorin to just say, it's too much for me. I can't do it. Meaning, a person's going to learn halacha. It's very difficult. It's so hundreds and thousands. I wonder if someone ever put a number to how many seifim there are in all of Shulchan Aruch. Probably a lot. Definitely over 1,000, if not probably 5,000-6,000 halachas. To remember them all. It's not so simple. But the point is but if you're in the game, it's a different story. If you're learning one every single day, you're in the game. You're in the halacha game. It means something. Right? It means you want. Now, I think, in a little bit of a deeper way, we'll call this level 1B, that when a person learns daily halacha, it also keeps his Yiddishkeit from being forgotten. Not just the Torah from being forgotten, keeps his Yiddishkeit from being forgotten. If you would, how much?
13,550.
13,550. It's a lot of halachas, and some of them are very complicated. What, ChatGPT? AI. If you would have to, it'll be pretty simple, but the two major hanhagas of life in Avodas Hashem, ahava, love, and Youre, fear. Which camp does halacha fall under? Halacha. Youre. Youre. Halacha means there's rules, there's guides, there's commands. You're an Eved Hashem, and this is what you have to do. To be an Eved Hashem. These are the rules you have to keep. It gives a structure. It gives a structure to what you're doing. Right? At the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the month, the master gives the Eved, his whatever, I don't know what the word is. What he has to do. Regimen. Like I'm gonna make a joke now, but it might totally flop. But if anybody knows Amelia Bedelia,
Sure. Yeah.
So every day they used to always leave, and they would leave a list of things that she needed to do. A to-do list. Thank you. That's what it is. Right. And then we all know how the book ended up. She would mess everything up. But halacha gives it's an inyan of Youre, because Youre is an inyan where it gives you a structure. Right? You can't leave the structure. If you build a strong outside, then within the inside there's room to maneuver. But there's certain things that you can't do, and there's certain things that you have to do. It keeps you in line. Also, let's say you wake up one day, you're like, I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood to do these things. Or lazy, or taivas, or you have other midos that are plaguing you, Yetzer. I don't want to serve the master today. Halacha keeps you in line. Youre. There's punishments if you don't. There's also a reward if you do. Youre is an inyan of seriousness. Now, Youre doesn't have to mean fear. It doesn't even have to mean awe. It means to be serious. Right? So halacha, learning halacha every single day, staying in the structure. Again, this is very, very basic, but not everybody does it. You have to be in the game. It keeps the Torah from being forgotten, and it keeps the Yiddishkeit from being forgotten. Okay. Says Rabbi Nachman weiter, he says, "V'hu tikkun gadol ma'od ma'od." Not only is halacha very simple, keeps you being a frum Jew, but it actually is a big tikkun. It's a big fixing. V'hu tikkun gadol ma'od ma'od. What is this? Ki al yedei chata'im, when a person sins, chas v'shalom, nis'ariv tov v'ra. When a person sins, he's mixed tov and ra, which of course is a hemshech, a continuation from the original sin of Adam Rishon, where he ate from the eitz hadas tov v'ra, because everything in this world is good. Everything that comes from Shemayim, comes from Kodesh Baruch Hu, is good. But not everything you're supposed to engage with it. And some things you're supposed to engage and you're not. And sometimes you mix dibur and you mix machshava and you mix action and you do things you shouldn't do when you mix tovara. You mix tovara. Now when that happens, that becomes a very big problem. Right? That's confusion. That becomes suffix, it becomes doubt. Vayidei limud posek, but from learning halacha, straight halacha. Shemevarer, what does halacha do? Halacha is mevarer hakosher v'aposel. Is this piece of meat, is it kosher or is it not kosher? So the Rabbi paskins, clear, definitive, concise. We separate the tov v'ra, right? When there's a shayla on a piece of meat, there's a mixture of tov v'ra here. I don't know. But the psak, the posek says this is the way it goes. There's no mixture here. Hamuter, v'ha'aser, hatar, v'hatami, right? These are the different types of mixtures that we may have, and we need to separate. Because through our chataim, we've become very confused, inside and out, and we need a way to be mavar. How are you mavar? How do you clarify? Psak halacha. And that's the way that you clarify and you separate tov from ra. Like Rabbi Nachman speaks about in this Torah of Ra'isim and Arzav, which we're going to quote in a minute. Ubishar mamar mindless limina poskim. Sin comes from a place of doubt, and it creates doubts. Gemara says, right, a person doesn't sin unless what? A ruach shtus comes into his system. That's what the Gemara says. Right? So sin comes from a place of ruach shtus, from a place of confusion, from a place of doubt. And then what happens that after the ruach shtus enters in you, it doesn't just leave and you're back to the same place you started from. You're left with a little bit of an impression of ruach shtus. The Gemara says, if a person sins and sins again, the Gemara says it becomes mutter. So the Gemara asks, becomes mutter? You sin twice and that becomes mutter? What does the Gemara answer? Anybody know? Kim mutter. It becomes like it's mutter. Because when a person does something again, he starts to become accustomed to it, and it becomes just part of the system. I once heard, I think it's B'Shem Rav Aaron Koller, but I don't know if I want to quote him exactly. But I think it's B'Shem him, so if it's good, it's him, and if it's not good, it's not him. That when a person sins, and he sins again, now in the inside of a person's mind, there's going to be a subconscious struggle. Am I a bad person? Or is this not really wrong what I'm doing? Right? People don't want to think that they're bad people. Right? You could have, and I'm sure maybe you've even read accounts or seen, you could have big time ganovim, you could have big time murderers who rationalize everything they did. They're not wrong. No. That person wronged me. He deserved what happened to him. It was self-defense. You just killed a 65-year-old lady. Yeah, but she had a purse that was really heavy. I'm joking. But you can rationalize your way out of everything because a person wants to, his ego makes him stand up and say, I'm not wrong. So when a person sins and sins again, so it's difficult unless he's actively working on this and being mevarer and saying, I'm good, but I did make a mistake, but I'm okay, and I'm going to do tshuva. Unless you're actively doing that, in the subconscious, you have to make a choice. Either I'm a bad guy, or this halacha is not really a halacha. Maybe the Rebbe is not really this. Maybe it's rabbinical. So chicken and meat, that was the rabbi. That's not what it says in the Torah. The Torah says meat and milk. And not just that, it says meat in the milk of its mother. Chicken and milk is so far removed. A person has to rationalize. So what happens? It becomes kimutter because you make it mutter through your rationalization, right? So when you have a clear halacha, psak, even though it sometimes is boring, psak after psak, hopefully it clarifies the silly way of thinking. Not always, but if you have a person who's honestly trying to learn halacha, don't like right he wants, hopefully that will help him clarify the silliness that has become a part of who he is. But it's even more than that. It could be more than that. That's all just learning Shulchan Aruch. But if a person would learn through the Gemara, now what's the Gemara made up of? Bavli at least. Mostly machlokas. The Bavli is one of the most confusing books of all time. Every page there's another machlokas, and then 6 pages later, even though you thought you finished one machlokas, there's another machlokas, and you have to use that machlokas to answer up another. That's what Bavli is. That's what Gemara is. That's why it's very difficult and people don't always enjoy it so much. But when a person does learn the iyun, and we're going to see a lashon of the Rambam of Rabbi Nachman in a minute, when a person learns the iyun and he goes into the depth, into the Rishonim, who try to clarify the halacha, and then into the Achronim, into the Shulchan Aruch, when you go through that process, when you enter into the world of the tzaddikim who are clarifying halacha, you're entering into a deeper world where it's not just a person who does something wrong, he starts to mix tov and ra. We have people who, like this Ganav, who thinks he's a good guy. How does he even think such a thing? I mean, it's such a warped way of thinking, and we don't even realize how warped our thinking may be, especially because we live amongst the Goyim, and they don't think the way we're supposed to think. There's no way, right? We don't even know where we're warped, but through learning iyun halacha, a person has a better sense of separating tov and ra. I was told this. So just to a piece of the Maisa many years ago. This goes back maybe 8 to 10 years. I don't even know how long. It was probably the first time I met Rav Schwartz. Bavavi. And I went to speak to him in Brooklyn. This is a long time ago. I was just learning this farm. And besides the fact that our language, there's a little bit of a language barrier. My Ivris or Ivrit is not up to par. Besides for that, so I just wanted to meet him. I just wanted to meet him. I was learning this farm. I was enjoying them. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to speak about. And when I got there, he says, "No, who are you?" I'm like, I don't know what to talk to you about. He's like, tell me about your day. And I was in a very confused state. I still remember driving there, not sure what I wanted to say. And I was just confused. And even in my dibur, I was going back and forth. And he says to me, "What are you doing in the day?" And I was telling him what I was learning, different things that I was learning. And at the end of the conversation, he says to me, it blew me away. He says, "You know why I asked you what you were learning at the beginning of the conversation?" I said, "Just schmooze? I don't know." It's like, "I saw you were confused. So I wanted to know what you were learning." Why? Because I knew you weren't learning Iyam. At the time that I spoke to him, I was not learning Iyam. I was learning a lot of Bikiyas, a lot of Gemara Bikiyas. And he said, "The reason why you're so confused is because you're not learning Iyam." So he told me. He told me something to do, and I did it. And it was when you learn Gemara Iyam to the halacha of Iyam, slowly but surely, it has a way of clarifying the way you think. I can't actually explain it, but
analytical skills being practiced.
Practice. You're working on the machlokas, but you're working in a deep way. Also, you're connecting to the Torah. You're connecting to Russian Hashem. Right? It's not just about analytics in a law office or something. But I'm sure they also have. This is your okay, not all lawyers. Relax. But when a person is trying to clarify the Russian Hashem through the machlokas of Torah, if you're trying to clarify the Russian Hashem, you come to a certain understanding of what a Kodesh Baruch Hu wants in this world, and you start to see through silliness, whether it be one side of a machlokas, whether it be certain ways in the way that this world is going. You're able to see through it. That's why sometimes you have a question. You're ever bothered with something, you're so bothered, you're going around in circles and circles, and then you go ask your Rebbe, and he's like, "I'm not sure what your problem is. It's simply this. Simply this way." And you're like, "Yeah, oh wow, you're right." Because they're so clear through their limud of halacha be'in, gemara be'in, and we're not so clear always. And in a second, they say that what's the shaila? It's so clear this way. Their clarity comes from the learning in a clear way. And Rabbi Nachman says, I didn't copy this for you. Rabbi Nachman says in Torah Ches, in the Menorah Zazav that he quotes, he says, the way to separate and to nullify the ra, the evil that's become embedded and mixed with the tov, huay de Torah utfila, through learning Torah and tefillah. We're not going to get to the tefillah portion. But he says, the liman ha-Torah yelolun la'amka shel halacha. You have to learn the amkus of halacha. Again, different than I think the way that Rabbi Nachman started off the Sicha, and the way the Baal Shem Tov said, which is just pashit, just learning halacha every day, get the basic shot. That's level 1. Stay on the rails, don't forget Torah, don't forget you're a Jew, stay within the structure of Yiddishkeit. Here we're talking about something different. Here we're talking about being able to be mevarer tov from ra. This takes a deeper limit of halacha, amka shel halacha, hainu lulmod poskim, to learn psak halacha, ki yesh b'Torah chizas hatov hara, because the Torah has a grasp on all Torah. Everything in this world comes from the Torah. Shene'echazin b'chinas iser v'heter. The Torah goes through many things of iser, heter, kosher, pasol, tuma, tahara. Right? The Torah goes through all of these things. And therefore, all tov and all ra are nichal in the Torah. The kol zman she'enon mevar halacha hu me'urav tov ra. And if you're not mevar halacha, if you're not being mevar the source of where all tov and ra come from, guess what? Then you're just mixed up. Now you're a mixture. You're a me'urav tov ra. But if you can go into if you can go into the Torah and be mevarer in Chumash, in Gemara, in Halacha, different cases, not just maybe what the cases are saying in the Shulchan Aruch, but the deeper case that the Achronim bring down, you're being mevarer, the source of all Tov and all Ra. So when you go through life and you see something, you'll know intrinsically, is this Tov or it's Ra? It doesn't mean you always know that because you learn Gemara Brachos, you can now see the Tov and Ra at work. You don't know how that exactly happens, but it happens. Because everything is connected. If all of this entire world came from the Torah, Kodesh Baruch Hu, to the Torah, to this world, right? Istako Barayso Baryam. Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. That means everything in this world, everything, is found somewhere in Torah. So if you're going to learn Torah in a clear way, guess what? Your entire life is going to become clear. Slowly but surely. Not in 1 minute, but sugya by sugya. And it doesn't mean, what I was saying before, it doesn't mean that only if you learn Gemara Brachos, then Brachos become clear, and if you learn Gemara Shabbos, then Shabbos becomes clear, and if you learn Beya, then Yom Tov becomes clear. Of course that's true, because those are the major sugyas. But learning Gemara Beya, Be'i and Rav, and separating the Tov and the Ra, Gemara Beya, which is talking about Yom Tov, can help you at work clarify what's Tov and Ra. Because it gives you, it becomes embedded within you the ability to see and to clarify, to understand and to know and to sense Tov and Ra. Right? Whether it's exactly the sugyas that you were learning or not. Valkain, says Rabbi Nachman, if you're not going to learn halacha, if you're not going to be clarifying, then you won't be able to be mafresh. You won't be able to be mevatel, the tov and the ra. They're just going to be mixed. Your whole life is going to be one big mixture. One big Erev Rav. One big Rav, Erev. One big mixture. Right, we know what the Erev Rav were. Who are the Erev Rav?
Rebel round.
The rebel rousers, those who left Mitzrayim to become Jews, and they messed around with Jews. They were always making the problems. They were always making problems. And today we still there's still Erev Rav. Because Erev Rav is when you don't have Das. Erev Rav is the same gematria as Das. Same exact gematria. Because Das is clear, Erev Rav is unclear. Das is when you could separate. Im ein hadas, as the Gemara. Im ein hadas, havdola minayin. If you don't have Das, how could you make separations? When do we separate Kodesh and Chol? Right? Motzei Shabbos. When do you separate, this was Shabbos, and now it's Chol? When do we make that separation between Tov Ra, Kodesh and Chol? Atachonin la'adam Das. In that bracha. Atachon antanu. It's only in the bracha of Das can you separate. So when you have an Erev Rav, a big mixture, things are unclear, you need Gematria equals what? Das. Das clarifies. He says the only way that you're going to be able to separate the Tov and the Ra, until you're ma'ayin, iyon, umevar, start clarifying, psakalach. Even setting up in a sugya the different shitas of the Rishonim, getting it clear, is also being mevar. Not being mevar necessarily Tov from Ra, but even making mevar Tov from Tov is very important. Umevar ha'asr v'mutter, you're able to be mevar to separate asr and mutter. Dahainu idei limit of poskim, as I mafresh Tov me'ra. If you limit of poskim, you can separate Tov from Ra. Liskos as seichel, you'll be zoche through that to seichel, wisdom, chachma. Sheyuchol lalum ankash halacha. He says like this. Liskos as seichel, sheyuchol lalum ankash halacha. The way that you're zoche to the seichel. How do you even get the seichel to be learning the halacha? Be'iyun. So this Rabbi Nachman says, we're not going to learn this now. It says, Hu al yedei tefillah. Through proper tefillah, ki misham nimshach haseichel. That's not for now. But everything that Rabbi Nachman has hakdamas and hakdamas and conditions. To learn Pashut Pshat halacha, you don't necessarily need tefillah. That's level 1 of Rabbi Nachman. Every day, 1 halacha, 2 halachas. Be in the game. You're an Eved Hashem. Youre. Okay, that's what we spoke about. But to be level 2, where you're trying to clarify Tov from Ra to live clearly, which is very difficult nowadays. You have to learn Ian Halacha, Ian Gemara, and the way that you're Zochet to that, besides the fact that you have to just learn and learn and learn, is through Tefillah. Okay, that's for another time. We can continue that time. But we see that you need to be Mevarer we need to be ma'ayin in order to have a psak and to be able to learn psak halacha. And the psak, pei, samach, kuf, what is psak mevarer? The suffix. Because psak and suffix are the same letters. Right? You have sveikis. What's a suffix? Tovara, mixed together. I don't know. What don't you know? Well, the problem is that there's good here and there's bad here. It's all mixed together. I don't know. Right? If it was vadai bad, then there's nothing to talk about. If it's vadai good, there's nothing to talk about. I don't know what to do because there's good and there's bad mixed together. So how do you clarify a suffix? Take the same letters, switch them around, psak. When you give a psak din, when you learn halacha, psak, to the ian, to the mevar, this is this is this is like this, here. So you turn the suffix, you take the psak, and you could be mevar, you can clarify the suffix. This is tov, this is ra, I'm going with the tov. That's what we're doing. Now let's connect a little bit to our parsha. Let's finish off and let's connect to our parsha. Rabbi Nachman says in Samach Beis, Umachlokes shebekedusha, holy machlokes. Who had a holy machlokes? Thank you. Perkei Avos. Who had a holy machlokes and who had an unholy machlokes? A holy machlokes is who l'shem shemaim is B'Sharma Beis Hillel. Who's the one who's mechalik shalol l'shem shemaim? Korach va'adas. So this whole the second half of this sheet of the Sicha of Rabbi Nachman is all talking about machlokas, clarifying machlokas, right? Who was the big machalik? Yikach Korach. He created machlokas. So before we get back to Korach, listen to Rabbi Nachman says. Machlokas shebekdusha, holy machlokas, who machlokas tanaim v'amoraim shebegemara, right? Tanaim, Amoraim, arguing in the Gemara, arguing in the missionaries. What's the psak in this situation? What's the psak in that situation? What about with this condition? What about that condition? This is a holy machlokas. All to be mevar to clarify what's the Ratzon Hashem. Shizah kosher v'zeh mater. This is also, this is mutter. But listen to what he says. Umishtal shalusam lamata. But when those holy machlokas started to come trickled into the world at large, remember, Kodesh Baruch Hu looks into Torah and creates the world. Both Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal. So when you're in the world of Torah Shebechsav, it's very clear exactly what a Kodesh Baruch Hu says. Meaning there's no machlokas. There might be some doubts about what he's saying. There's no machlokas. Comes the missionaries, comes the Gemara to try to be mavarer what a Kodesh Baruch Hu was saying. What is a sukkah? But from there comes to be machlokas, holy machlokas. Is it 20 amos is okay a sukkah? Is 20 amos too high? Is it too little? What's Ratzon Hashem? Two Amoraim arguing about Ratzon Hashem. It's amazing. But what came from those machlokas was the lower level machlokas. From Mishtal Shalusim Lamata, when those types of holy machlokas fall down lower, Nishavim Mimena machlokas Yetzahar. There was a creation of the machlokas of the Yetzahar. I mean, you could have, let's say, just for example, you could have two big tzaddikim. You can have, I don't even want to say names, big people, big poskim. And they could have a machlokas and all, they could be yelling at each other, but they're not angry at each other. There's no gaiva. They're just, it's called the Machamta Shel Torah. They're arguing about the Psak Halacha. What's the Ratzon Hashem? They're going at each other, right? Pure midos. Afterwards, they hug each other, they kiss each other, like the Gemara says. But unfortunately, when you have Talmidim of these great people who are not as pure as their Rebbeim, and their midos are not as refined as their Rebbeim, so when the Rebbeim, when Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai are having a machlokas, and they love each other afterwards, but the Talmidim of the Talmidim, sometimes their machlokas is not always so pure. Sometimes you're trying to take a hit at the other Rebbe, you're taking a hit at him, you bring up old stuff, whatever it is. But all other machlokas, and that's it, even at least they're arguing in halach, but then there's all machlokas in this world. Bad machlokas comes as a hishtalshalus from the holy machlokas in the Gemara. It says Rabbi Nachman, ukishemasaki and machlokas of kedusha, when you're able to fix up all machlokas of kedusha, azay memelin is bata machlokas a yetzahara. When you clarify a machlokas in the Gemara, then there's no machlokas. Therefore, there's no Yetzer Hara dik machlokas. Because the Yetzer Hara type of machlokas only comes as a byproduct of the holy machlokas. But if you clarify here, you clarify here. Because the achiz, the grasp of the Yetzer Hara is only from the holy machlokas. But if there's no machlokas, then you're good. So how do you fix up holy machlokas? Hein halachos psukos. Straight, clear, concise halacha. Ki psak halacha hu hashalom v'hachrosh hamachlokas atanai v'marayim. Psak halacha is peace. Is the psak, is the clarification of all the machlokas of Tanai v'marayim. Rabbi Akiva is arguing with Rabbi Yishmael, but the Shulchan Aruch comes out and paskins one of the ways through the Rishon, through the Gemara. Now there's peace. Even though we don't paskin like Rabbi Akiva, and he had to say what he had to say, because that's what he felt, but he was masking. If this is how it came down, this is the Hanag of Klal Yisrael, that's fine. There's a peace now. Through limit of poskim. So when you learn psak halacha, what are you connecting to? You're connecting to the shalom of kedusha, because all psak halacha is shalom, right? You don't hear rishonim. You can't, but you don't hear. Once the Gemara gives a psak, you don't hear any of the acharim saying, or the rishonim saying, no, that's not the right psak anymore. No, that's not right. Once. You rarely, it happens once in a while. The Shulchan Aruch will pass on something. Very rarely you'll have a straight on machlokas at the Shulchan Aruch. Very rare. Most of the times, everybody agrees. There might be certain situations that the Shulchan Aruch wasn't mevarer, the Magen Avraham and the Taz, but rarely do you have a Magen Avraham or a Taz or a Vilna going to say, Shulchan Aruch, you got it wrong over here. You don't have it. The way the halacha came down, it's clear. It creates a shalom, and that's it. Then you're mevatel the machlokas of the Yetzer Hara in a person's heart. The confusions that a person has, tov and ra, the machlokas he has, which are based sometimes on his midos. I have a taiva this way, but my MS says that way. My laziness says this way. My rotzen goes that way. And then you can serve a Kodesh with your whole heart. Because when you can clarify, when it's a mixture of tov and ra, you're just a big bilbul hadas. But if you can clarify your tov from your ra, so you always go with the tov, and you know where the ra lies, you know that there are good things potentially that the ra can help you out with. Sometimes a person needs to speak somewhere, but he's very shy. So a little bit of gaiva can help him out to get up to speak. Gaiva was usually bad, but you're using it in a proper way. That's only when you clarify the sugya. If you don't realize that you're sometimes a Baal Gaiva, so you're just a Baal Gaiva. If you know that there's Gaiva and you know that you're using it as a tool, then you're using it, it's not using you. It's a big difference. And the mind opens up. You know how to answer an apikoros. Fine. So Moshe Rabbeinu was the Shulchan Aruch of the time. Right? Kadosh Baruch is teaching Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu teaches the people. It's transmitted straight Hashem to Moshe. Moshe to people Torah Sinai. It's very clear, concise. This is the halacha. Torah Shabbat, right? The Torah Shabbat that we have is what Moshe Rabbeinu said. Everybody can understand it. The Gemara is filled with machlokas, but it gets to a certain halacha. We get to a Shulchan Aruch, right? The Shulchan Aruch and Moshe Rabbeinu are very similar. Moshe Rabbeinu has the clear, concise halacha, and the Shulchan Aruch has the clear, concise halacha. But what happened with Korach? Korach's name letters is Choker. He tried to be very smart. And he was very smart. This is the problem. He outsmarted himself. He created a big bilbo hadas, a big erev rav. Why? Because he tried to take pasha pshat halacha. What's the halacha? You wear a four-corner garment. This is Moshe Rabbeinu. Pasha shlach. You wear a four-corner garment. You need to put tzitzis. Another. You need to put tzitzis and one string of tchelas. Right? Very clear. What's the problem? And Korra comes, and we all know what his medrash say. Korra says, "Whoa, Moshe Rabbeinu. I don't know. It's a funny zach. What happens if I wear a beged? The whole beged's tchelas. So obviously, you don't need to wear any tchelas in your tzitzis. Right? This is what he says. Moshe Rabbeinu, if you need tzitzis on a beged, and one string of tcheles is good enough for all the tzitzis on the beged, well then, if I would wear a beged of tcheles, I shouldn't even need any tcheles at all in the tzitzis. Doesn't even make any sense.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't even make any sense. But yet he got a lot of Klal Yisrael rabble-rousing because they were going against the clear, concise psak halacha of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Shulchan Aruch. Jackhammering out there.
They're out there.
This is what Korach did. The Zohar says that Korach went after Shalom. He went to break the concept of Shalom. Because psak halacha Moshe Rabbeinu is Shalom. This is the psak. This is the Russian Hashem. And Korach says, are you sure? Maybe it's not like that. Maybe it's really like this. And he didn't have such good intentions. He wasn't saying that this is the Russian Hashem. He was saying, what was Korach's intention? Moshe, you're wrong. That's what the Mishnah Perek Yavos says. It's Shlo L'Shem Shemayim, they're machlokas. Korach Ba'adaso. It never even mentions Moshe. Because Korach wasn't even arguing with Moshe. It wasn't what's two people fighting about what's the Ratzon Hashem. It was Korach just trying to destroy Moshe Rabbeinu. It had nothing to do with Ratzon Hashem. So Korach went against the Shalom. He was trying to go against and break and use his mind, and he was all crooked. He had a big machlokas in his leg. There was Gaiva, Chazal say. If you start to go against clear, concise halacha, you start to make a person doubt and become unclear about psak. You know what the next question a person could say is? How do I even know there's a Bari Olam? How do I even know that there's a Torah? Because if you break the most pashut building blocks, that which should be so clear, it just needs one string of tchelas. Very simple. That's what Hashem said. If you start asking questions on that, you can start asking questions on anything. That breaks Shalom. That breaks Simcha. So when a person's always in doubt, he starts doubting everything. There's no Simcha. There's no clarity. So Korach was. This is exactly what Korach was trying to do. He was going against it. He didn't learn the Psak Halach. He was living in a place of doubt. So let's finish off Rabbi Nachman. Huh? He definitely didn't learn the Sicha. So let's just finish off. So for Amr, so says Rabbi Nachman, he goes back to the beginning. Every day a Jew is obligated to learn halacha. It's too much. He has no time. He's an honest. Just open up any Sefer Shulchan Aruch. Learn one. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter. Open up, learn halacha. Even if it's not where you're currently holding them in Shulchan Aruch. Because every single person has to learn at least one din in the Shulchan Aruch every single day of his life. It keeps you a Jew, keeps you in the path, keeps you as an Eved Hashem. And if you're not an honest, so Yom Keseder Kol Arba Shulchan Aruch Midei Yom B'Yom. Learn straight Shulchan Aruch every day, sif after sif. And when you finish the Shulchan Aruch, start again. This is the way a Jew has to act. So at least do learning Shulchan Aruch level 1. Basic, Pashup Pshat, as much as you can. They have nowadays, I'm sure they have it in English now, the Shulchan Aruch. Mishnah Berurah they have, which is the Shulchan Aruch, at least in Chaim. And if you can go a little bit more to learn Halacha B'Iyan, start clarifying different sugyas, to clarify your life, to clarify Ratzon Hashem. This is the way a Jew goes. This is the Halicha of a Jew. This is the Halacha.